Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the second day of angle relationships. Yesterday, we talked about adjacent, vertical, complementary, and supplementary angles. And today we're going to use this knowledge and apply it to find the missing angle measures. So hopefully you watched yesterday's video. If not, I would encourage you to go back and do that so you know what this vocabulary means today. So for this first example, we are told that these angles are complementary, and I'm going to underline that vocabulary word. That's important. And remember, that means that two angles, when you add up their angle measures, the sum is 90 degrees. We also see this symbol down here. That means that this angle is 90 degrees. So if we add up the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2, we should get 90 degrees. Well, we're given the measure of angle 1, that is 52 degrees. We don't know the measure of angle 2. And so with an unknown value, I'm going to label that x. And we're actually going to create an equation to find the measure of this missing value. So we're going to say that this missing value, x, plus the 52 degrees, the measure of angle 1, is equal to 90 degrees. How do I know the 90 degrees? Again, because I'm told that the two angles are complementary, and I also see this symbol down here, meaning 90 degrees. So going back to solving equations, which we did right before school was let out, I'm going to use inverse operations. So I have my unknown value, and I'm adding 52 to it. So what is the inverse of adding 52? I'm going to subtract 52 from both sides of that equation. That gets rid of that. And so I'm just left with x is equal to whatever 90 minus 52 is. 90 minus 52 is 38. And so we know then that this measure, the measure of angle 2, is 38 degrees. And here's how we write the measure of an angle. You might see it like this. So the measure of angle 1 is 52 degrees. The measure of angle 2 is 38 degrees. Well, I'm going to go back and double check that I did the math correctly. If I add up 52 and 38, I'm going to check that really quickly. You should get 90. So this checks out, so I know that the measure of angle 2 is 38 degrees. So that's an example of those two complementary angles that were adjacent. Now let's look at these two angles. These are not adjacent, and I actually did measure these out. I went through some stuff at home this evening and found a protractor, which looks like this, and I measured out that angle MAD is 17 degrees. Well, we don't know the measure of angle RUN, but we do know that these are complementary. So I'm going to label my unknown angle with x, and if I take that value and add the 17 degrees, it's going to have a sum of 90. Same thing, the inverse of adding 17 is to subtract 17. And so I'm left with x is equal to 90 minus 17 is 73 degrees. Well, let's check actually first. is the 73 degrees plus 17 degrees equal to 90. That does check out, so I know that this is equal to 73 degrees because those are complementary angles. So I set up my equation, solved it, and then checked to make sure, because they're complementary, that these two angles do in fact add up to 90 degrees. So now let's move on to finding some missing angle measures if we're given supplementary angles. And if you remember what supplementary means, the two angles have a sum of 180 degrees. They form this straight line. We also talked yesterday that these two angles form a linear pair. So this angle is a little less than 90 degrees. It's 81 degrees. And we don't know this missing angle. However, we do know that if we add these two together, it should be 180 degrees. So I'm going to label this x, and I know that if I take the sum of x and the second angle of 81 degrees, I get 180 degrees. The inverse of adding 81 is to subtract 81. I do that to both sides of my equation. That gets rid of that, and I am left with x is equal to 180 minus 81, and we get 99 degrees. Let me check before I put this into my diagram. Is 81 plus 99 in fact 180? That's 10. 9 plus 9 is 18. This does check out to be correct, so I can for sure say that the measure of that missing angle is 99 degrees because they are supplementary. That straight line is formed. And let's go on to our last example. Okay, so with this example, we're given some information, and I'm going to label my diagram based on this information. It says angles 1 and 3 are vertical angles. If the measure of angle 1 is equal to 147 degrees, angle 1 is right here, so this angle measure is 147 degrees. We need to determine the measures of the other angles. So I know the measure of angle 1, 147 degrees. Well, I know that angles 1 and 3 are vertical angles, and if you remember from yesterday, vertical angles are congruent. They have the same angle measure. So if this angle is 147 degrees, this angle, which is across from it, and they share this point, must also be 147 degrees. Well, now we have to figure out the measures of angle 2 and 4. How can we do this? Well, I'm going to look at angles 1 and 2. If we look at angles 1 and 2, together they form this straight line. So that means that angle 1 and angle 2, this right here, is 180 degrees. So angle 1 and angle 2 are, do you remember what that vocabulary word is to describe angles in which the sum of the measures is 180 degrees? They form a straight line, and so angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. Angles. So that means that angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees. So we don't know the measure of angle 2, and that's what we're going to find out now. I'm going to label this x. So this angle measure plus the 147 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. To solve, I'm going to subtract 147 from both sides. I get that x is equal to 180 minus 147 should be 33 degrees. And I'm going to check my math before moving on. Always check. 147 plus 33, 10, 1. That does equal 180 degrees. So I know that the measure of angle 2 is in fact 33 degrees. Well, how do we figure out the measure of angle 4? Angle 2 and angle 4 form a special relationship as well. They are across from each other, and so they are also vertical angles, meaning they're congruent. So if angle 2 is 33 degrees, the measure of angle 4 is the same. This is 33 degrees as well. And so we have figured out the missing angle measures for all the angles in this diagram after we've been given the angle measure of just one angle. We used vertical angles and supplementary angle relationships in order to figure these out. So that is it for me today. Good luck with your practice. And tomorrow we're going to use some more algebra to figure out missing angle measures. I will talk to you guys then.